some over the top, mind blowing trade here, but it is good enough for me, sir. No, it's getting accepted. I just haven't gotten to it.
Wait, is that OG?
Yeah,
OG.
I don't think it's what either of us wanted overall, but I mean, well, to start with, I should say, yeah, obviously we both want it, but
right,
you'll see it in a minute.
Yeah,
man, I'm having so much trouble. Like my Mac is like 15 years old. It is the hamster's dead on this thing.
So for those who don't know or have not listened to us long enough to know, Nate is the OG goat that started this thing with me. We were and you know, this is a good reflection of what we used to
totally
on a weekly basis. We'd both be like stuck in a garage or basement, like with no AC, sweating, you know, with like, or your wife would be behind you on the bed or the dog.
My dryer's going on in the background, or the fans ruffling the mic. And then 2 or 3 runs on the intro because something wasn't recording or
Oh yeah. It was there was always something. I'm pretty sure we did a couple shows where we thought we were recording and weren't.
Good old days.
The good old days. Yeah, man. We're happy to have you back. Again, for those who don't know, Nate can be found on Twitter at Nathan_Pilmer. He's you know, we talk about him often on here in the GOAT leagues. He's one of the most active. There's not a day that goes by where Nate does not go in at least twice to ask if anyone's ready for trades or interested in talking trades. And as the commissioner and someone, you know, who kind of runs these things, it's you can't have a better guy than Nate, you know, to keep the blood flowing, the action going. And, you know, we get busy in life and, you know, it's mid-July. Let's face it. People are busy with other things, especially with the craziness going on in the world. But at the same time, sports are coming back. We're excited. So Nate likes to get that action going. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming on tonight, buddy.
Yeah. It's always fun to come back and reminisce, I guess, just like you kind of laid out here. But yeah, and like you said, there's not a lot of outlets right now for a lot of people. And I know we're getting close to the season now, which is just fantastic. And it's there's a lot of good, a lot of still things that have me worried, but I'm optimistic. So it's it's just an opportunity to escape everything that's going on right now. It's always welcome. I appreciate you guys extending the invite. Always happy to come back.
And in the other corner, we have a fellow Canadian. He had his crew on a few weeks back, but unfortunately, you know, life away from fantasy had him tied up. So we wanted to get him back on as soon as we could. So Trav, man, welcome to the GOAT District, brother.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. Yeah, it's there's the GOAT that I've been looking for. I love it.
I forgot to play when Nate came on. I should have probably played it for Nate too. So I gave you 2 there.
Beautiful. Yeah. So like you said, it's been a bit of a long time coming. I was saying to Dan before we came on there that it was a pleasure to actually kind of meet him in person. And Nate, same goes to you, man. So thanks for having me on, guys. And I super excited to get into some of this stuff that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So we like I said, we had your crew on. The True North crew has you know, with the GOAT District, we've become really close really quickly. You and I were joking the other night that it's, you know, it seems like we've known each other for 20 years type of deal, which is awesome, you know, because I thought I was one of the lone Canadians out here in fantasy land, and it's nice to have some you know, like Dan, I always say I consider him kind of Canadian, you know. You know, North Minnesota there. He loves to come up here north of the border for his little adventures. So I consider him Canadian, but yeah, it's nice to have our little crew. Why don't you talk about the Canadian group that we've got, the DM group that you guys started, and then talk about True North a bit, the website, the podcast, and you guys even have YouTube action going on right now.
Yeah, man. So yeah, the group chat that you're talking about, actually, obviously with a name like True North Fantasy Football, we're pretty openly Canadian. And yeah, that was something, you know, I didn't really know who was Canadian in the industry or anything like that. So I just kind of put a call out on Twitter and said that I was getting a group chat made just to get some Canadians supporting Canadians. And so it's grown. It's that group is 50 people strong now. So we got lots of conversation in there, as you know. And then there's a couple other leagues where we've connected with some other some other folks from the country as well. So it's been really cool, man. I think some really good friendships have been made in that conversation, just like you and me, like 20 years, man. No problem. We could hang out in person, no problem. So yeah, that's been really, really cool to see that little community grow. And then as far as True North, obviously we started about a year and a half ago. We just started out with Ty and myself on the podcast, and we started a little website for some articles. And fast forward to now, we've got 12 guys on the team. We have 4 podcasts in the podcast network, and lots of articles going on. And we did recently launch a YouTube channel, much like yourselves, gentlemen. So congratulations on that. Looks like it's going really well. And that's been really fun, man. Like we're really just trying to figure out the YouTube space still a little bit, but it's been really fun. And it's like a different world, putting yourself on camera and having people see, your facial expressions and stuff like that. Whereas behind just a podcast mic, it's a little bit easier to just maybe just be a little more free.
Yeah, I see you and Dan have figured out your lighting way better than I have. But like you said, man, there's always something to figure out, right? And I think a lot of us get into this, and we, I'm speaking for myself here, but we don't really know a lot of the technical side of this. So it's fun. These are nice little challenges, to kind of move on to something new. And you and I are helping each other out through this. So it's nice to have someone to kind of share the adventure with. And yeah, man, it's nice to have you on. Tonight, I mean, Dan, I know last week I asked you about your trip and how our life was going, and we talked to the zookeepers. Go check that out, by the way. That was a great episode with Matt Price and Bobby Koch. But Dan, I think tonight we just got to get into it, man. There is so much goodness to talk about. I might even cheat, because I know usually we don't really talk headlines here. We try to keep it pretty dynasty and player value, and we got our own thing going, but I don't know, man. I feel like there's stuff going on in Fantasyland or in the news that affect Fantasyland in different ways, and I want to get your takes on it. And I'll start in Seattle. Jamal Adams going there. I know it's a defensive player, but I think it does say a lot about what Seattle is doing out there going into 2020 and in the next couple of years. And to me, that should affect some of those fantasy players that we're looking at out there in Seattle. So I'll go to our guest out there in Cali first. I'll go to Nate. Nate, does anything jump out? Like when you see this news, is there anything that made you react and start getting I know your wheels are always spinning when it comes to trades and guys that you want to move or go after. Anything kind of get a flicker when this trade came through with regards to your opportunities you might be seeing right now in Fantasyland?
Well, okay. So what big trade are we kind of focusing on for Seattle? I know you mentioned Seattle.
Jamal Adams going there.
Yeah, it definitely is an influence for me, because every time you see a big trade, and it's so good to see a trade. It's like, for me, I don't care if I'm the one involved. I just want to see people to make trades. Most of all because it shakes up roster action and it provides more opportunities for everybody. But I think it's going to help from a perspective that it's going to make them, from a fantasy perspective, it's tough, because when you look at it defensively, you want to have, I guess the idea is that, if you have a poor defense, it's going to help you on the offensive side, fantasy wise, because you can have more opportunities to come from behind or whatnot. I don't know if this is going to push a lot of influence for me on the Jamal Adams side, but so
let me set the narrative a bit more. I didn't maybe open up that question specifically enough. So I guess what I'm referring to right now, the narrative when you listen, to people talking about this trade, is that Seattle gave up a lot, or gave up those 2 firsts. And that, to a lot of people, means that, you look at Pete Carroll and his age, you look at Russell Wilson, that maybe this is a team that's going for it now. They're thinking that the next 2-3 years is their window. So that's kind of where I was going with this, like maybe that changes your approach on some of these guys offensively. Look, maybe it doesn't,
I kind of feel like Seattle's always going for it. Right? They're never really not out of it. I think
their coach is like 98,000 years old, right? So,
but you know what? Pete Carroll still walks and talks and runs around that sideline like he's 30 years old.
He totally does.
Maybe it's in the bubble gum. I don't know, but it's that team is always in contention. They're always going for it. I know when now that San Francisco's become, I guess, a perceived powerhouse in that division. It's going to be a little more difficult, but I don't think they're a team that's never not going to be going for it. As long as they got Russell Wilson there, DK Metcalf, for a lot of people, is who people thought he was, and I think for a lot of people who didn't like his combine numbers outside of his 40, were pleasantly surprised to see him overcome all that. And I'm hearing rumblings that, or maybe it's just from a Josh Jordan perspective, like, hey, Seattle, I'm available. We're still here. And Tyler Lockett is getting slept on again. This guy's a wide receiver one capable player here. So everything is there. And then and they got Greg Olsen, I believe,
Yes.
at tight end.
Greg Olsen at tight end. Carlos Hyde came in and
The offense still has the makings of everything you need. And not to dismiss, Carson. It's that running game. It's really hard to buy anyone in that backfield, but I guess if you're looking at it from a value perspective, sure, Carson's still there. Penny, I guess, is an absolute value, but what return are you getting? But overall, that offense is ready to, always is ready to fire. So yeah, to your point though, Pete Carroll is probably looking at this as like, well, yeah, I want to win something now. Forget those first. I mean, the Jets got paid for just. Sorry to get sidetracked from that one because that's from a non-fantasy perspective. That's a great return for the Jets. But yeah, that definitely tells me that these guys want to win now. But yeah, fantasy-wise, I don't see any problem with anybody on that offense at their current ADP.
Trav, anything to add with regards to this trade on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so for the Seahawks, I think it does signal that they are continuing to go for it. And I agree with Nate there that this is a team that is always in it with Russell Wilson. But for me, it kind of fortifies the fact that they are going to remain run heavy. There's been a lot of talk about whether they're going to let Russell Wilson loose and let him toss the ball 550, 600 times. And I think with them fortifying the secondary, that shows me that they don't really want to get into these shootout type games that are super high scoring. I think they want to get back to that strong defense that can kind of control the ball a little bit. Obviously, they have some pass rush issues, but I think it just solidifies that they are going to try and be a run centric offense. And I think for me, like it is hard to buy those guys, but I think in drafts right now, Chris Carson's not a bad price. I'd take a shot on Carlos Hyde for pretty much free or super cheap. And then even guys like DJ Dallas or somebody who I would toss on like a taxi squad, just because I think we know the identity of that team and they're going to try and continue to run the ball, even though I think Russ could do it on more pass attempts. I just don't think that's the type of football that they want to play.
Yeah, DJ Dallas is an intriguing player. I agree with that.
Totally, man. He's like a little bowling ball.
Cheap.
Yeah.
But Dan, I know like Carson's kind of in that range that we like, right? With those when you're especially those startups we did, the Connors, the Carsons, because these guys can give you top 5 production any week and are not going anywhere close to that price. And similar to Trav, that's the first name to me that, being someone that I like in Carson, that like you said, it kind of solidifies that he should be a big part of it. And even if he's a bit injured or, being the tough guy that he is, I mean, Pete Carroll's going to make him play because he's going to want his best players out there. And that's kind of where I was going with that. Dan, anything to add with regards to this move?
Yeah, I think you guys have hit most of it. And I agree on Chris Carson. I think that he's a really good buy right now. He's perpetually underrated. He's kind of one of those ideal RB2 types, just in that, he doesn't have probably the highest of ceilings, but he's got a really nice floor. Any week that he's playing, he's going to get you points. So he's not one of those real boom bust guys. So, he's one of those guys I like to have, 2 or 3 of in my lineup every week, just to kind of put that floor underneath things and then let my other players go chase that ceiling.
Dan, I'm going to come right back to you because we're getting, the last 24, 48 hours here and maybe a bit longer, but we're getting a few opt-outs with regards to players. I know up here north of the border, we have, and I'm going to forget his name, but the KC defenseman out there in Montreal that's working the front lines. He's a medical doctor. Yes, sir.
Laurent Duvernay-Tardif.
Merci, monsieur.
There you go.
Merci,
do it again.
And I mean, this guy is like a true hero, right? He just won a Super Bowl. He plays the NFL, and he's going to pass this year, so he can stay and kind of battle against this COVID thing. But we're hearing more and more in New England, some players we haven't really had that like significant. I know Devin Funches is one of your favorites, Dan, so relax. But I'm just saying we haven't had anyone, more significant than that opt out.
Damian Williams though opted out today.
Oh yes, see, you reminded me. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Why don't we just go right
huge.
there because that's a topic right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's big news for the Clyde Edwards-Helaire owners out there, of which I am one. Yes, so always happy to see my players get a nice little bump like that. I mean, it's not the way you want it to happen. You'd like to see him compete and win the job, but he'll take it any way you can get it. And this definitely is, that puts a great floor under Edwards-Helaire, who I think, going into the season, there was a lot of people who are thinking, Damian Williams might be the lead back to start with, and they kind of ease Edwards-Helaire in there. And now I think it's going to put a lot more pressure on Edwards-Helaire to pick up that offense, and they're going to get out there and really see what he can do. Because when you look at, you've got, two more Williams out there. You've got, what is it? Darrell Williams, and you've got the other one, the one from Utah State.
There's Darwin.
Yes, Darwin Thompson. That's it. So you got Darwin Thompson, you got Darrell Williams, you've got Dwayne Washington. None of those names are really going to inspire a lot of optimism, I guess, for the Chiefs. And they do have a first round running back that they drafted in Helaire. So I think this does a lot for Helaire. And the other guys, it definitely puts them one step closer to the throne. But I think you need that Edwards-Helaire injury for them to really do anything of note.
Nate, this is exactly what the CEH owners out there needed, at the end of the day. Because for me, even as a drafter, like in best ball and stuff, Damian Williams, his price was pretty high. He was kind of at that end. I think he was going like after Swift and those guys, but he was at the end where he was like those guys that can give you those RB1 weeks, but they're not necessarily consistent enough. Now that's just gone.
Yesterday, just by the way, I came very close to trading for Damian Williams on my CEH squad. I was looking. But fortunately for me, my fellow owner was looking to put the screws to me a little bit too hard, and I backed off, and I was like, nah, I really can't do that.
I bet he's regretting that right now.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get a little too greedy there, bro.
That's right.
So Nate, what's your anything else with this KC situation? I totally forgot about Damian Williams. Wow, because that just popped up a couple hours ago. So what are your thoughts?
It's just great to read Twitter right now. Just it's all just blowing up. CEH season or I'm seeing the Darwin Thompson season things pop up, which is great. But it's so great to see, because honestly, it's like, yeah, I agree with Dan. Like it was likely going to be, I should say, Damian Williams was going to be involved. I mean, that guy should have been the Super Bowl MVP in my opinion. He was whether or not he's a great running back, he was great in that offense.
Right.
There's no reason to believe that he was just going to be put on the bench, regardless of whether or not they took, Wait, how are you guys going to? Can I just say CEH or Clyde or something? Because I hate pronouncing.
Yes. Just go Clyde.
Clyde's good.
Either way, Clyde is cool. Yeah, Clyde the Glide.
Oh yeah,
mouthful for sure. It's a big mouthful, that one.
Oh god, yeah, we'll go with Clyde. Regardless of where they drafted him, this was likely going to be the scenario, as is with most scenarios. I mean, I don't even think that's a rare thing to see rookie running backs get eased in to the role when you have someone who's already done it there for you. If it's not like quarterback where like, okay, well we don't want to suck, so you're going to be thrown into the fire right away. I mean, I think that's a luxury to have your quarterback eased into it. Running back wise, you don't have to, but I think when you see it happen so often, I think we're going to expect the Williams to do that. So this is just a nice thing for to expedite the return. It was going to eventually happen, but I don't think it shouldn't really affect his value at all. It's just
like as in CH.
Yeah, the perception right now is that yes, boom, it's he's top 10 pick, or I've seen people say that. That's not my opinion. I've just seen people say, yeah, he's a top 10 pick now. It doesn't feel like it was like, okay, did we really think Danny Williams was going to like be a major
he was going RB7. You're right. He was going RB7.
Yep. Well, no, but yeah, I'm thinking like, or for what I'm seeing is people are saying top 10 overall pick in startups.
He was going 13. I mean, it only moved,
I like my rookie running backs. I just haven't got there yet. So, but I don't think it shouldn't have changed his value that much. But if you can capitalize on it, great. I'm seeing guys talking about like, yeah, I'm getting Swift and a future first, for Clyde. And I'm just a big Swift guy, but I also like Clyde as well. So it's just, it personally doesn't feel like it should have moved his value, but since it is, I'll be happy to take it, especially if I'm an owner. I just don't feel like anyone's moving him right now. So what's the point?
Well, it's one of those where if you did, because the only CH I have right now is where I got him in a rookie draft.
Right.
Otherwise, I didn't, because look, like you said, he's going like 13th piece in Dynasty, man. Like
it's hard buying that right now,
especially with Damian Williams there. Like that's just bananas. And now you seem like a hero. You're like, oh wow, I'm smart. I drafted him in the 3rd round or whatever it was, 4th round, and now he's like the man. But I'm also the guy, Trav, that likes grabbing those Darrell Williams, off waivers in the middle of the year and putting him on and Deshaun Washington, or Deshaun, Dwayne Washington. I mean, those are the guys I love grabbing off waivers and stacking up the depth on running back. Is there a guy in that backfield that you prefer maybe with the situation now, or are you like Nate where you think, what, it kind of stays the same, just Damian's not there anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Like I did move Clyde up a little bit for 2020 because I was of the mind that Damian Williams would get some of those early season carries. So I moved him from 14 to 10. So I've got him kind of right in line with where he's going in drafts.
Overall or running back?
Running back
okay.
10. Okay. Yeah. And so as far as guys behind him, I would take a shot just because they're cheap and they're in a really good offense, right? And we know that the war of attrition will hit running backs, and we can't predict who it'll be, but I think those guys in those high-powered offenses are the guys that you want to try and hit, because mid-season those guys could be league winners depending on what happens in KC, or on dynasty teams. If you have like last year on taxi squads, I was putting Darwin Thompson wherever I could just because the offense that he was going to, and he looked pretty decent in some usage at the end of the year. So I think Darwin Thompson would be the guy that I would probably take a shot on, but I wouldn't really be opposed to taking a shot on both because they are super cheap. Now the price might go up a little bit now, but I think they're probably still cheap enough that if you want to add some depth to that running back, maybe some future upside, you could maybe do that with those guys. I do think we need to look out for them acquiring or signing another running back, because we've seen them do it with Carlos Hyde. They did it with Shady, and I think they even brought Spencer Ware back for a second cup of tea with the team a couple years back as well. So it kind of seems like they want that vet presence, and they don't have a whole lot of experience in that room right now. So I really think that they might go to acquire somebody. One name that I floated out was Jerick McKinnon, who, if he was healthy, would look really good in that offense, and that would maybe bring Clyde down a little bit if they were to acquire him. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't think I would, if they brought somebody in. I'm not putting Clyde back to 14 where I had him before. I think maybe back a spot depending, but I really like Clyde's outlook now.
How about Devontae Freeman going as RB67 in the FFPC? Imagine if he goes to KC, what kind of value? But you talked about those guys, those kind of back end RB, and I'll ask you guys this: if you have any of these guys, right, like whether it's CH or Darrell Williams or any of these guys in this backfield that are effective, is there an opportunity? Like for me, that's an opportunity just to sell one of these guys, get a third or 2021 third, or am I wrong, Dan?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think it's impossible to say yet exactly how that's going to go. Whether you can get that price or not. I think a lot depends on what happens in the coming days. If we start getting some coach speak about one player in particular that's backing up Hilaire, or if we get that big highlight run or something like that, that's kind of what I think we need to juice that price up to where somebody's going to be willing to throw out a concrete third for him. Right now, I think it's still a little bit speculative, but you never know. What do you think,
Well,
Trev?
I think it's interesting that you say that too, because we're not going to get the preseason to see those pop-off plays, right? You're going to have to wait till in season. And depending on what your roster looks like, if they're showing some good pop-off potential, then you might want to keep that guy on your roster, you know? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I personally feel strong enough that they will bring somebody in, that if somebody came to me with an offer for one of those guys, I would definitely look at selling. And I think the guy that you would probably look to sell right now would be Darwin Thompson, because he did have that hype last year. So you could get him on a little bit of that post-hype and maybe get a little something for him. Like, you'd be looking for a 3rd round pick, like you said, Dan. You're not going to get crazy with the value and try to gouge people for him. I think you're taking what you're getting probably, but I think, you know, if you do that, it might be a better return than what he will give you in the long run.
Yeah. Nate, I'm talking like taking one of these guys and going to the CH owner, you know what I mean, and being like, "Come on, man, send me a couple thirds or couple." You know, is that something that you like, or maybe you package them into something, maybe a deal that you couldn't get going before?
Oh, you know me so well. That's exactly what I'm doing. So when you have those you know, gap filler, you know, what are you going to do with these guys other than hope you can get a really good trade for them type players like Darwin Thompson? And it's funny to say Darwin Thompson, because I agree that the hype is with him, but you know, Darrell Williams was the guy that was balling as far as who was the backup, and he's not getting any love. But yeah, I have an affinity for the big trade, and it's really hard for me. But it's more difficult for me to do a small trade than it is to do a big trade. It's like playing pool. Like, you give me the trick shot, I'm probably going to make that 7 out of 10 times. But if it's dead straight, I miss it 9 out of 10.
That's a pretty good way to explain it.
And plus, at the same time, if I'm sober, it's harder as well. Same thing.
You try to send Nate like an RB3, he's coming after Barkley. You know?
Oh yeah,
That's kind of the deal. That's kind of the deal with Nate.
Sure, yeah, but absolutely. Try and package to say, hey, this is my sweetener part of the big trade, because I don't want to just make a trade for something that is a low percentage or won't help. It's not going to help my team now, and it's a future third. It just doesn't, it doesn't get me going here. So I like to throw him into a trade where he's the sweetener piece or he's the add-on. So I wouldn't blame anybody who wants to get that 3rd round for him. Absolutely. But again, I think it all depends.
We're losing Nate.
Depends if you can look at your roster. Every trade's roster depending on my roster, then moving in for a 3rd or 4th round pick.
So if we kind of stay in the same realm but shift this a bit, sticking to tonight, we're going to focus on receivers. We're trying to get some kind of structure to these shows, and position is a good way to do it. No, Dan and I want to kind of focus on positions. We started off with tight ends a couple weeks ago, so go check that episode out. Last week we focused on a specific tight end and specific receiver, so that was kind of like our bridge show, like a nice bridge player, like a T.Y. Hilton type of guy. So tonight we're going to focus on receivers, and you guys, already started talking about a couple. Nate, I'm going to go to you first because you are a Bucs fan. You've got 2 of, the best receivers out there in Tampa. But I want to know, just as a guy who, obviously you're active, you play in a lot of leagues, what's your general approach with the receiver position? And if
I like the word general.
Yeah, I just mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, for myself, receivers, I rather go top heavy and be a little bit good. Is that a good? I can't tell if Nate is breaking in.
Sorry, there's a little delay on my end.
Okay,
it's a little delay on my end. Sorry.
Go ahead, brother. Well, I think we lost them again.
Nope.
Yeah. No, but when you said general, and I like that, because as of right now, what I'm trying to do from a general perspective on receivers as a whole is I try to be patient with these guys. I think
that Cali internet
is what I've noticed over the years. It's become, and also to the point of being streamable, So and from a startup position, like the top guys, are still the same guys. You got Michael Thomas. DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, those type of guys. And they're not old. They're not to build around that. And I'm looking at the second round guys who are right on their tails, and I can wait another round, maybe 2 rounds before even touching that position. And you get those, share running back opportunity. We're seeing committee just becoming the norm everywhere. Doesn't mean you don't get a running back that has a lion's share, but it's getting really hard to invest in these guys.
We're losing Nate a bit. All right, we're
That's
gonna.
early when you're not sure about their snap share. I'm pretty patient with them as best as I can.
So Nate, you're cutting out a bit. So I'm gonna pass the question over to Trav just to keep it going to see if maybe you reestablish your connection. Maybe you can even leave the room and kind of come back, see if that helps the connection. But Trav, I know, I'm sure the listeners
Yeah, let me try that.
what Nate was saying there with regards to his approach, being more patient. I mean, it is a position that you have to be patient with, similar to the tight end. And that's why, for me, tight end and receiver is a position I'm willing to spend a bit more at to get proven production versus buy, the hopeful upside that Fantasyland loves to spend money on, I guess. So what's your general approach when you're maybe building a new roster or maybe holding an existing team that you have at that position?
Yeah, so I mean, like as far as a new roster, I do like to have roster balance. So oftentimes in drafts, depending on the spot that I'm at, I do like to go ideally running back in the first round and a top wide receiver in the second round. Like if I can get like a Tyreek Hill, maybe a Chris Godwin, those guys are really nice in the second round. But if I can't do that or the value doesn't present itself, then I'm probably looking to go a little bit running back heavy myself, just for the fact that you can get these breakout wide receivers in the fourth round or so that can turn into those wide receiver ones. So you guys are big FFPC drafters, of course. So I looked at some FFPC ADP, and in the back of the third and the early fourth, you're getting guys like Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham, Juju, even AJ Brown. And those are all guys that I would be able to stomach as my wide receiver one on my roster, right? Like, especially like Cooper Kupp is a big guy of mine this year. I'm super excited for his season. Got him on a lot of teams, and on those teams, I've got really strong running backs, because for me, with all of the 3 wide receiver leagues that we play in now, I would rather stream that wide receiver 3 spot than have to stream my running back 3 and even sometimes my running back 4, because as the season wears on, those guys are harder to come by and you're going to have a hard time trading for one, especially if they're producing at the time. And then further to that, just kind of a cherry on top is that when you do have more running backs, sometimes you have a little bit more leverage in those trades mid-season if you want to retool your wide receiver room. So that's kind of where I like to skew a little bit, just maybe a little bit run heavy if I can't go balance in the first 2 rounds. But of course, it comes down to you can never be too rigid, right? So if the value, if I'm at the back, there is a good chance that I would take one of those wide receivers at the top if an Adams or even a Hopkins fell to me there. So it's really about being fluid, but I am somebody who leans a little bit wider or running back heavy, trying to hit those rounds 4 through 7 breakout wide receivers.
It's definitely easier to do that this year, Nate. It's nice to see the visual. I see you've upgraded your internet. Like that's living in California, right? You can just like snap your fingers, upgrade my internet, good to go. But just to make sure we're established with that Wi-Fi, we're gonna go to Dan first, just to make sure it's stable, And Dan, what are your thoughts on the position, man, when you're building these rosters? I know roster construction is a big thing with you.
We're not sure yet, but yeah, that's a good idea.
So, I think with wide receiver, that's one of those positions that really, you got to look at your league rules and starting requirements first and foremost, because some leagues really emphasize being deep at wide receiver and other leagues really not so much. Like in the FFPC, you can build a variety of different ways, and you don't necessarily need to be deep at wide receiver if you're deep in other places. And with the depth of the or I guess I should say the shallowness of the total roster at 20 players, capped at 20 players, the FFPC also means that there's going to be startable wide receivers on the waiver wire every week. So how I handle wide receiver in the FFPC dynasty leagues versus other dynasty leagues definitely changes a little bit. And those are the kind of things I want to keep in mind as I'm looking at the position. Is just what is my league trying to tell me about wide receivers and how I should value them, and then based on that, I think obviously this year with the COVID and everything and the lack of practices, established wide receivers who are on the same team as before, working with the same quarterback as before, are going to definitely have a leg up, and I'm going to prioritize them a little bit more. But one of the things that I'm kind of seeing coming in the position overall is, we've got that great class from 2014. And so we've got a lot of really good wide receivers there, and they're sitting up in the basically a lot of them are still sitting up in the upper echelon wide receiver one territory, but they're also starting to hit that age 27 cliff, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's not really a cliff, but they can still be very, very productive, but their trade value is really about to start falling off a cliff. They're treading on the edge of the precipice. So if I'm starting a new dynasty league, I'm going to look to go a little bit younger. I'm going to look to grab guys from the last couple classes, from 2018, from 2019, and try to build around those guys, because I think they're going to retain their value a little bit more. So that's the Charks, the McLaurens, the AJ Browns. Those are the guys I'm going to really look to emphasize. Even a Calvin Ridley, even though he's a little bit older, Juju for sure, DJ Moore definitely, Chris Godwin. So there's plenty of younger guys that we can build around and have a strong wide receiver core for years to come.
Guys, there's like a million directions I can go right now. First, I just want to touch on those 27-year-olds. Those are like, for me, the Cougars. I love Cougars, man. Show me some Cougars. 27 to 29. You get them at a discount. They give you top end production. I love it. Give me some Cougar action. Nate, are you back?
Problem is those 2014 guys, you're not quite getting that discount yet. Next year, man, I think then we can get that discount, and those guys are going to start becoming really attractive. But this year, I keep seeing, those, DeAndre Hopkins, he's freaking expensive, and he's at that spot where I think, in another year, he's going to be significantly cheaper. So I'd rather let it sit on somebody else's roster right now, and then I'll acquire him later.
See, I feel like Hopkins is actually, because he's going up there, man. He's going like wide receiver 4 or 5. Did I see that somewhere?
Yeah, he's
he's going wide receiver 4. Like, for me, he's outside of the top 10. He might be, like, if you're really, high on him, he's a top 10, but for me, he's outside of the top 10 in my rankings. So for me, he's a guy that I'd be selling. Nate, I feel like you're back with us. I'm feeling the good vibes out there in Cali. Give us what you're give us a quick resume of what you were trying to tell us earlier, and
whatever
then like
Dan said.
whatever Dan said.
Well, I came in.
Dan, you need to start like working with people's money, because people really trust you, man. Like, he was giving you full trust.
Well,
now Nate,
Yeah, no. Because So I decided to switch to the phone here. Sorry about that, guys. The phone's doing a lot better, so we're gonna run with that for now. But when I came in, he was you're pretty much kind of touching off what I was basically going to say as well. These older guys are going sooner. They're going in the top 10 from a startup perspective, and I'm looking at these guys who are there in the late second, mid second, early third, and I mean, arguably these guys are being traded straight up for each other right now. So you're looking at ADP value from a startup perspective, but you're looking at trade value, they're almost identical. And I can see why. But I like to draft my running backs, trade for my wide receivers, and then. But at the same time, I want to be able to build my team around my wide receivers, because that's what you could be doing from a core perspective. Because these running backs are a revolving door for the most part. There's definitely a small percentage of these guys who are reliable year after year after year, but they're a very high investment player. So I'm going to try and look at the draft for the rookie drafts for my replacement running backs with these core guys. I got to build around my young and reliable wide receivers on a consistent basis.
Trav, anything to add, Dan?
No, I like it, man. I mean, like I said, I skew a little bit running back heavy, but I can totally see the merit in the wide receivers just because of the shelf life. And yeah, it's really interesting because you got to make sure you don't go in with a set strategy, right? Just let the draft fall where you are, and hit on the values, and hit on, try and hit on some upside, try and trust in yourself to hit those guys that haven't broken out yet to break out. So yeah, it's all about being fluid, baby.
Yeah. Agreed.
Dan, you talked about one of my favorite topics when it comes to receivers, and that's rapport with these quarterbacks. And we're coming into not only like a high fluctuation, I guess, type of situation with COVID, but you're looking at situations where you've got new quarterbacks going to new offenses, new coaching, coming in with new offenses. You've got new receivers moving around, receivers come back from injuries. Like, there's so many different factors that are affecting the rapport. And I think that it's very important. I know personally, one thing that I'm starting to try to do with my rosters is make sure that in my flex spots, I'm running some running backs. Like, if I can get myself 3 or 4 legit workhorse starters on a roster to go in there and battle every week. And then, I'm talking like a 2 flex, 3 flex type of starting lineup here, as opposed to sticking in receivers, because I do think that with the limited practice time, the limited training camp, and this is kind of where I was going when I was talking to Nate about Tampa. Look, the weapons are beauty. Brady is beauty, but let's face it, these guys have not had the time that they would normally have together to build that rapport. So that's kind of where I'm going, Dan. And I guess I want to go back to you, like, in this, looking at the receiver position and the COVID situation, has that really, has it changed how you approach this position, and how is it kind of changing, anything you want to kind of touch on right now? Because I feel like this is a very important topic with what's happening right now in fantasy land, and especially with the receivers because of that rapport.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't change things a whole lot for me because I've always been a little bit nervous about wide receivers switching teams. It's not a total death knell, but it's one of those things. It's definitely a strike against, and it's something you have to weigh into their price. And you have to understand the risk you're taking, and so this just takes that and puts it up to the next level, I guess I would say. So it becomes even more important, but it was already a factor that I pretty strongly considered. So, you just have to make sure that you're aware of what the risks are for a player that's changing teams. We were just talking about DeAndre Hopkins. He would be a guy who would definitely be at risk. Even though he's a great wide receiver and should command a great market share, and he's got a good young quarterback throwing to him, it could take a while for the kinks to work out, and so you need to at least have some early season options that have that familiarity with their quarterback, and then you can maybe kind of switch over to those late season options.
Yeah, we basically touched on the 2 receivers that I see personally that I'm targeting in the top, I would say even 20 to 25 receivers, and that's Hopkins and A-Rob. For me, A-Rob is a buy, Hopkins is a sell. A-Rob has proven that he can play with pretty much any quarterback. He hasn't even had an above average quarterback in some people's opinions. You know what I mean? So imagine what this dude can do. And people think he's been around for so long. He's not even 27 years old yet. So he's not even in that cougar range like we're talking about. Nate, I want to know specifically a team like Tampa, talking about receivers, talking about COVID. I know a lot of fantasy land are invested in guys like Godwin, Evans, maybe Gronk. I know specifically like in the Scott Fish Bowl, because I don't have a lot invested in those guys. I've got a tri-stack, I guess you could call it, with Brady, Godwin, and Gronk, just trying to differentiate. But it seems other people had the same idea I did. But give us your thoughts, like in a team like Tampa, and with what's going on with COVID, the limited practice time. Like, how do you treat guys like this that in some people's eyes are top 10 receivers, both of them?
Right. Well, the one good thing about this one is is okay. Brady is going to be Brady. That guy's going to command offense, and I think he's going to find a way. Actually, he has found a way to do this. The guy broke COVID protocol. He got in trouble with the NFL Players Association. I think he got ticketed for working out of a park. This guy has made sure he's been working with his guys. He's worked out with Mike Evans. I haven't seen anything with Chris Godwin yet, but I know he's worked out with Mike Evans, OJ Howard, Gronkowski, and Dare
the old guy. What's his? I can never say his last name.
Ogunbowale.
Dare's good enough.
Now's a good time for the captain.
Eclair, or I can't even say his name. And then and Cam Brake has been there a lot. So and this has been going back the last 2 months during the all this chaos. So I'm not overly concerned about chemistry between these guys. And just like I was starting off with, that offense is going to make things work on its own. That is just a completely high-powered offense. It's not going to be so YOLO like it was with Jameis Winston. So yeah, I mean it's reasonable to expect guys like specifically Mike Evans for his production to take a hit. I just don't think it's going to be to a point where it's like he's worthless. I think you got 2 wide receiver ones on offense, easy. I don't know how to approach that tight end group. I don't know. Like I said, from the offense perspective, that offense wasn't really something that you look at as a tight end from the offense. But now you have 3 capable guys of being the top tight end there, but we all are going to assume it's Gronkowski. I don't see how we couldn't. I honestly think that was a contingent upon, if Brady says, I'm signing here, you better bring in Gronkowski. I fully believe that was part of the process. So I think Brady's going to find a way to force it to him. The most interesting thing about that offense right now to me is that running back situation. I have no clue. Who's the top running back there. I couldn't tell you. Everyone wants to say, okay, yeah, but this is, Vaughn was Arians' guy. That was his choice. Okay, yeah, I get that. I agree with that. But then you have Ronald Jones, who was horribly managed by Dirk Cutter. He didn't develop any of his rookies, period. And you can see what Roger did with him, and then what he did the year after with Arians. Over 1,000 yards total offense, and huge plays got called back due to irrelevant penalties. So, like, you're seeing it live here. I can rant on for Tampa Bay, and I don't want to do that because I know it's a short podcast. I just want to say, don't worry about chemistry because that has been going on for a few months. You have the best quarterback probably to play the game ever, organizing things as we speak right now. He's working with rookies, and you have a top-tier coach and his offense involved. So there's no concern with me. The only thing is I just don't know who to pick first. And that's a good problem to have. You have a bunch of talent there. Who do you take? Well, I think they're all going to produce. I don't know from the tight end perspective who's going to get the favor, but everyone's going to produce there. And as it pertains to their ADP, I'll put it that way.
It's such a fascinating team because you literally ask the same question for each position when you think about it. Receiver, maybe not as much because you've got the 2 studs, but when you look at tight end and running back, I mean, it's an enigma, what's happening there. I mean, even a guy like Cameron Brate for me in tight end premium leagues is going super cheap. And I'm like, really? I'll grab him. I'll grab him as my tight end 3.
He almost went undrafted in a few drafts.
In a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't know who Brady's going to hook up. Look, we don't, maybe Gronk comes in for 2 games, gets hurt, whatever. There's so many different variations. So it's definitely, whenever there's questions, that's an offense where you take your shot. And you talk about the running backs, they're both going as RB 29 and RB 30 something in FFPC right now. And I like to link my running backs to a good offense. And most people seem to think that this offense should be pretty good, above average in a high scoring division. So why not invest in these running backs? Anyways, we're kind of we could do a whole show on Tampa offense.
I'll just touch on those 2 running backs just real quick.
Buy
both of them because they're still both relatively cheap for probably what they're going to produce. And if you have one, just get the other. That's all I'm going to say.
That's definitely a good call. Even though I'm not a hashtag handcuff guy.
I hate handcuffs, but yeah, this is different.
I agree 100%. All right. So guys, we kind of generalized the approach right now. Why don't we just talk specific guys? Trav, give me a guy that maybe you're buying or selling or that you see is going at a value, or maybe a little too high right now when you're looking at the receiver position?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned a big buy of mine was Cooper Cup, but I'm not going to spend some time on him because I've talked a lot of him this offseason. You actually mentioned, Nate, one of my other biggest, or a guy that I am a really big fan of in Seattle, and Tyler Lockett. I think he's a crazy value right now, especially with the DK love. But I'm actually going to go to a wide receiver who did change teams. It's a little bit outside the box, but I'm going to talk about Brandon Cooks as a value and somebody that you can get for a decent price based on the return. Like it's not the sexiest one, but I still believe in weapons that are attached to Deshaun Watson. And I think there is a lot of hate on Brandon Cooks based on the concussion from last year, which he only missed 2 games from. And he's only missed 8 games in his career. So the guy's like been healthy. He's got a lot of experience with changing teams and having new quarterbacks and still producing. And so I just think like at a wide receiver 36 ADP to me, the wide receiver 1 on that team. And if he's not the wide receiver 1, then Will Fuller will be the wide receiver 1 for roughly 6 games, maybe. And then after that, he's going to clear the path because we know that Will Fuller can't stay on the field, which is unfortunate because he's really exciting. But the guy's just super up and down as well. Will Fuller, I think he has 11 games in his career where he has over 20 or 11 games under 5 points and only 10 games over 20 points in his career in PPR. So that's a lot of inconsistency. And we've seen consistency from Brandon Cooks. We've seen him, get a decent target volume. We've seen him be a deep threat. He's, for a small guy that's not breaking tackles, he's had decent yak seasons. And then in the Rams offense, they even used him as one of their predominant red zone threats as well. So I think Brandon Cooks can do a little bit of it all for this team. He's not going to automatically take the 150 targets that DeAndre Hopkins had because they do have Randall Cobb, who I think is one of those deep guys that you could add to the bottom of your bench if you go really high upside and a lot of risk at the top. Like a Randall Cobb, Jamison Crowder is kind of the type of guy that you could fill the bottom of your roster with. But I just think Brandon Cooks is being disrespected based on a small sample size of not performing and being injured from last year. And I think he's ready for a pretty big bounce back in that Houston offense.
Nate, if you're wondering why I'm muted, there's like an alien sound, so I'm just muting you a little bit when the others are talking. There it is.
I muted myself.
Yeah, there you go. But Dan, I was trying not to go Houston receivers because we've talked about Will Fuller but it's these guys are they're going at such a value that in an offense where look, there's no like main target, you know what I mean, right now in an offense. So if you can get that wide receiver 1 in that offense at a value, it's legit. So it's definitely worth talking about, and I love that as a buy. Who do you have, Dan, right now in the receiver position that you're maybe got an eye on, or maybe you're trying to avoid?
Well, first I want to piggyback on Trav here and just point out that I'm gonna list you off 5 numbers, and you can decide which one of these numbers is not like the other. Okay, you ready? We have 14, 10, 15, 13, 62.
Are those Brandon Cooks's fantasy finishes?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So it's just like
I was so excited to use my wrong answer buzzard, and you got
it. Well, I've been doing some digging on these wide receivers in all fairness, but I do remember from just checking his career detail on Rotoviz or something that he does have like a really good string of finishes, and he's just being dogged for that one bad season in the Rams offense that experienced a ton of change, right? They were really bad running the ball. They didn't give any targets to the running backs. They brought the tight ends in more to help the run game towards the back half of the season. So yeah, I think the hate has gone too far on Brandon Cooks. And on the COVID point, gentlemen, just another point with that is that if you do have deep benches, when you get into the wide receiver 4 and 5 for these teams, I might take a shot on a big upside guy like a Kenny Stills, because if COVID were to strike and hit like a Fuller and a Randall Cobb, then Kenny Stills could have some good opportunity across from Brandon Cooks or whoever it may be. I think now I'm not super huge on handcuffs either, but if you've got deep benches, I might look to do that a little bit just to secure the production. If you have somebody who you expect to be a big producer for your team, I might be a little bit more inclined to handcuff just because the opt-outs that are coming, as well as the guys having to go on that COVID-19 list, which I believe is a 3-week sit out. Is it not?
I think it's a little bit unclear yet as to exactly how long they might have to sit out. I think there might be a way they can come back before 3 weeks, but they would need specific things to happen. So
Right.
The best way to look at it is probably 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. And as far as my pick, if I'm looking for a wide receiver to target, give me Adam Thielen. I know that JD has him on the other list, wide receivers he thinks is overvalued, but I really like what Thielen's got going for him, and he's kind of hit that age. This is going to be his age 30 season, and that scares a lot of people. But the way that he wins, is not really. He's not a speed guy or anything like that. If he loses a step, it's not as big of a deal. He's more of a precision route runner and a burst guy. And I think he's still got that burst. I mean, we saw last year, we had the perfect storm of things to kind of take away from his, to bring his price down a little bit. Number one, we had a Vikings offense that ran the heck out of the ball and really took the air out of the ball. And whether they'll be able to do that anytime again in the future is really hard to say. I mean, I think that's what they'd like to do, but what they'd like to do and what they can do, especially with as many pieces as they lost off of that defense, those may be two very different things. So I think Thielen, is going to see increased volume from what we saw last year. The passing game in general is going to see that increased volume. He had that injury, which scared off a lot of people. And then he also has that big number 3 in front of his age coming up this season, we're the 3-0, and that scares off people too. So all these things just serve to bring down his price. And if you look at Tim in the New Orleans playoff game, when he finally got healthy again, he absolutely destroyed the New Orleans secondary, destroyed them. He has not lost anything. Thielen is still Thielen. He's a guy that's I'd be very aggressive about going out and trying to get him, because you can get him for a cheap price from almost anyone right now.
Dan, I'm glad you brought up my tweet because I know all of Fantasyland is just, I know it's like top of mind right now. No, I'm kidding. But you're talking about Thielen, and it's funny. I did want to mention earlier because I did put out a tweet earlier to kind of get people interested in the show, letting them know we're talking about receivers. And what I had done is when I was done upgrading my rankings and tiers, I was kind of comparing it to DLF. But after I sent that out, I started playing around and comparing it more to the FFPC. The reason I went to DLF is when I'm looking at deeper leagues, I like to look at DLF. And when I like to look at more shallower leagues, I'm looking at FFPC because I think there is a big difference there with the, less guys you can hold on your bench and the cut downs and all that kind of stuff. I think there's definitely guys that lose value in the FFPC that might not in other deeper dynasty leagues. So that's kind of how I use it to ADP. So when I went back and compared it to the FFPC, Thielen is dead. Like I've got him at 27, which is basically what the FFPC has him at. So I don't disagree with you at all. He's a guy that can give you a wide receiver 1 production at a very nice discount. I think what people are afraid of is more the offense he's in and just kind of that run heavy. And that's what people, kind of maybe gets them to shy away from a guy like Thielen. But I agree that he's, again, he's one of these older Cougars, in the 27 to 30 age that can give you that serious production. And people, and he's also undrafted, so he doesn't have that draft capital, Dan. So that might be why his price is a little cheaper.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'm going to shock you guys by saying, I mean, you look at guys who are going to give you the upside, all right? I don't think that
Nate's favorite
about upside.
Nate loves upside. That's Nate's favorite.
I loathe it. Wrong L word. But with Thielen, it doesn't feel like it's upside, right? It feels like that's where he should be. It's just you look at last year. Last year could easily be an anomaly, and it probably was. I mean, across the board. I mean, even for Diggs in that offense, that ended up being a Dalvin Cook year for that offense. It was not a throwing team. These guys who should have been fed were not getting fed, and you saw the disconnect between him and Cousins happen on the sidelines that often. So yeah, I agree. I mean, Thielen is a guy who should be giving you wide receiver 1. You're not taking him because he could. he should be doing it. We're not talking about it with him. We're talking about the upside guys that you want to draft way late who might drop, some random 30 burger game on you, or like maybe give you like a 19. Now, this is what Thielen should be doing on a weekly basis.
We're asking these questions, we're having this discussion, and one site we talk about often is the FFPC. You see it at the bottom on the ticker there. If you're thinking of joining a site, maybe step up your game, see what you got. The FFPC is definitely the place to go, myffpc.com. The reason I want to bring it up right now in this conversation is, Dan, I don't know if you saw this email yet from Dave, but just with regards to how they're going to handle the COVID situation and players that are either opting out or going on the COVID-19, IR. So basically they're allowing players under that designation to be added in the IR spots, but they're not necessarily extending the size of the rosters or the amount of IR spots. Am I correct there, Dan, with what I've read? And is that something you've looked at yet?
Yeah, I did see that earlier today, and that's to me that's great news. The fact that anybody who opts out, you can put on your IR, and then anybody who goes on the COVID list in season can also go on the IR, and so that gives you a little bit more flexibility with how you're dealing with your rosters. I still think FFPC is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, just with the 20-man roster limits and 3 IR spots. You're still looking at a max at 23. So I think that the good news is that's probably going to spur a lot of trades in season. As players look to, try to, if somebody's running a little bit short or whatever, they don't like the waiver wire options, they're probably going to be looking to trade, and if somebody's got that extra little bit of depth, that's going to be a great opportunity for you to, maybe pick up some value in trade, because the person who is in the tight spot in the jam there, they're going to be willing to give up a little bit extra value. So I am looking forward to the trading season in FFPC this year for sure.
Yeah, I think that's huge, man. I think their dynasty, as we all know, their dynasty leagues, they've never had one fold. They've got all, a wide range of price points when it comes to dynasty. I love the challenge that it offers. Most of my dynasties, whether it's MFL or home leagues and that sort of thing, you're looking at 30 plus roster spots, whereas the FFPC offers you the challenge of a maybe shallower roster, but the waiver wire is very active. And I think, like you're saying, Dan, this is definitely going to brew up some action in these dynasty leagues, because you got to remember, these are a little higher stakes, so people might be a little more hesitant. They're not as trigger happy as a guy like Nate might be. Nate, I'm still saying, man, you got to come join us on the FFPC for some dino action, son. Brew that stuff up, But no, I think it's a good thing. I like how the FFPC's put out their way of approaching this COVID situation with their leagues. And, it makes a guy like me as a commissioner reflect on how I'm going to approach regulations and rules as we get closer to the season, hopefully, and COVID and all that kind of stuff. So appreciate the FFPC for putting that out. And I kind of like it. Like Dan said, it's going to brew up some action. And like we talk about every week, man, they got $500,000 up for grabs in 2 different tournaments. So whether you want to, play in a redraft, play in a dynasty, play some best balls, there's literally no format of fantasy football that is non-existent on the myffpc.com. So go check it out. And like I've got at the bottom there, send us a quick email, godistrict@gmail.com, to get a little bonus action if you're a first-time sign up onto the site. So Dan and Nate, you guys started talking before we got into the goodness, and we, you love getting that little email, that tells you that a trade went through. And I was hoping this was one that I sent Nate and he accepted, but I forgot that he already rejected that one. So I saw Dan's name. So why don't you guys set this up? Nate, why don't you set this up? It sounds like you're back with us here. Give us the deets on this transaction and your thoughts on it before Dan gives his comments.
I wish it was probably one of the other trades that we were trying to do in this league. A few big.
I was going to say it's kind of small for a Nate trade.
Yeah, it's very small for a Nate trade.
It's like a minnow.
This is what you get in the one quarterback league. You know,
Nate's trying to get me to change
Don't
the
get me
OG
wrong.
Superflex, so he had to like.
Don't get me wrong. I think we need everyone needs one quarterback league, maybe a redraft league here and there. But I think everyone's doing super flex, maybe a tight end, anyways. No, I've been trying to get. Well, I wasn't trying, but the fact that he offered a player to me, I was trying to get him, but it looks like the focus was on the running back. This one just came back around to, I guess, on the secondary assets that we were looking at. So this is what I'm talking about. You mentioned like the Darwin Thompsons. These are the guys you want to throw in there as a filler, right? So the guy that I traded ended up being by himself, who was the filler asset I was trying to add onto the bigger trade. So it just developed that way, and I guess that's a way that will help evolve into maybe a trade that you guys will do, because the big trades are hard to do. They're the most rewarding when you get them done, but you don't always work out. So when you get the secondary asset, you can say, screw it, I just want to trade, let's do it. I needed a tight end here, and this is a guy I wanted to talk about on this show, and I'm glad we got the trade done before we talked about it, because I didn't want to talk Dan out of moving him. I needed a tight end here, and he had Johnny Smith, and this is I'm really excited about seeing come into this next season here, because I think I just saw that Corey Davis won on the puppets, right? Not like he was a factor, but I guess it kind of is. I mean, it's always nice to see that roadblock removed. It's like Damian Williams. It helps obviously to get that challenge out of your way. So Johnny was going to be a guy that I think everyone was kind of looking at like, yeah, this guy could just easily swoop into that top 8 tight end discussion here. Now he has a consistent, capable quarterback throwing to him, and you got AJ Brown taking all the attention away from him. So I like having that addition to it. I mean, my other tight end was Jarwin. I think it's kind of the same idea where you're like, yeah, I have good expectations, but I'm still not confident. So that was important. And the other guy was Lazard. So I mean, Green Bay wide receivers. He was a nice guy last year, so he was kind of a throwing asset. And then I ended up moving Denzel Mims. And I'm in a rebuild right now in this league. I love rebuilds, love them. And he was a guy I definitely didn't want to move, but at the same time, if I was going to move a young asset, he was the guy to move. And thankfully, Dan had interest in him. Thankfully, Dan was open to move John into me, and thankfully, just opted out for Lazard to return to 2019 form. So maybe I get some luck out of it. If I don't get Lazard to perform, whatever, it's fine. I actually just really wanted John.
Yeah, and I knew that Jonnu was Nate's target there, because we traded a few offers back and forth, and it seemed like Jonnu was one of those. He was kind of a constant in what I was getting back from Nate, which those are the kind of things you want to pay attention to. Who are the kind, when you're trading offers back and forth, who are the players who keep popping up in the offers you get back, because that lets you know who the other guy is really interested in. And so, it lets you help to craft an offer. And even though this wasn't a Nate size trade, I tried doing the Nate size trade for DeAndre Swift, but I got the cold shoulder on that one. Nate told me no, DeAndre Swift is never moving off his team ever again.
Which I rarely say. Yeah.
His new crush.
I am not loyal to any player, so this is weird for me.
Oh man, it is. I mean, I was like, so I came in strong for Swift, but he rebuffed me. So anyway, yeah, I like the fact that I was able to package up Lazard and Jonnu Smith and pick up Mims. I think that's it's a good trade for both sides. Nate is still rebuilding. He needs depth. I'm kind of in that middle ground where it's kind of a rebuild, but it's more of a retool. And I'm looking to get a little bit younger, and it also helps that I'm a Baylor fan. So getting Denzel Mims, that's always a plus.
That was my only mid share too. So it wasn't automatic, but
right.
Damn it.
Yeah, and I also strategically waited until just before the podcast to send the offer to, because I knew that Nate would be guilted into wanting to make a trade one way or another.
Oh yeah,
so there's like a 7 or 8% higher chance that he's going to accept on that trade.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You just want to line up all those little advantages as best you can, and then just strike when the time is right.
It's like Girl Scouts coming to your door sending you cookies. I mean, I'm gonna buy 100 if you come to ask me straight to my face.
Right. Exactly.
Damn it.
Trav, as kind of the, you've got absolutely nothing in the game here. I'm in the league with these two savages over here. What's your thought on this? It's a minor trade, but it's still guys that Fantasyland's holding, wondering what to do with, right?
Totally, man. And we were talking before that we always put our trust in Dan, and with that little pre-podcast move that he just pulled there, I might have to pull back on that a little bit and be a little bit weary, Dan. I don't think we play any leagues together, so I think I'm safe that way.
Right.
But maybe you're a little more sly than just the nice, trustworthy Minnesota guy, right? No, I love it, gentlemen. I like those trades where nobody's really losing value. You guys both get a piece that you want, or in your case, Nate, that you need on your team. And so, like Mims, I think there are questions about his return this year. Obviously, we don't necessarily know what he's going to be. We hope that Adam Gaze is going to be gone after this year, but there's a lot of unknown there, right? And I think for Jonnu, in your case, Nate, in needing a tight end that's going to produce and not going into the season with just Blake Jarwin, which is pretty sketchy, I think Jonnu's a great pickup for you. I think he could have top 10, top 7 tight end upside because that offense in Tennessee is very condensed. It's basically AJ Brown and Jonnu Smith as far as the passing game, because we know Derrick Henry's not getting any, and Corey Davis is just kind of really hit or miss. And now if he's going to be on the pup, then that's just maybe another feather in the cap for Jonnu as well as AJ Brown. So I like it. I like Denzel Mims as well. Like, his contested catch ability is fantastic, and he profiles as the wide receiver 1 for Sam Darnold and the Jets moving forward. So I like it both ways, fellas. And Lazard was a little bit of a cherry on top. I don't expect too much out of him, but if you get anything, that's basically a return based on your expectations of the trade, right? Yeah. So I really like it, gentlemen. I like those trades that work both ways and everybody comes out happy.
Yeah, I got nothing more to add. I agree with Trav there. I think it's one of those, maybe not a mid-side trade. It's like not necessarily a mini trade. It's, just a small size,
call it a futures
trade. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more, Nate likes to make the big moves, and there's no question about that. I think of myself as a little bit more of a sculptor, just kind of chip a little bit here, chip a little bit here, chip a little bit here, and shape my team that way. And then every now and then you gotta take off a big chunk and make the big trade. But I like kind of chipping away the value and seeing what I can make.
Nate,
right? Nobody in chat is talking about this. Usually, when there's any trade that goes through, people are like, hey, nice trade, or whoa, monster trade.
Yeah, there's radio silence.
That's silent right now.
Okay, well, just so you know, Nate, there's no chat because we're not live, but that's all right. We're slowly getting there. But I know it pains you to talk, anything but big trades. So before we go to a couple Dan FFPC trades, you made a trade with our boy at Dynasty Goat. Is this in the UPD or is this in Goat League?
This is in the UPL, or Ultimate Premium League, which is the.
All right, give the details.
2 quarterback minimum. So it's aptly named here. So it's an Ultimate Premium League where it's a 2 quarterback, not a super flex, 12 team, which makes it hard. It's a 0.25 per carry, and running backs get a half PPR. Wide receivers get a full PPR, and it's a tight end premium league. There was no tight end involved in this trade, but this is for context. And I didn't know if he was going to accept it or not, because right now it's hard to buy these rookie running backs, and as of today, you're going to see that for Clyde. This trade involved Jonathan Taylor, and I was pretty healthy on the wide receiver side. And we had mentioned DeAndre Hopkins here about he's a top wide receiver, but new offense. And I still think he's one of those quarterback union guys, but he's a top guy. But I was pretty healthy. I still have Mike Evans. I have DJ Moore. I drafted CeeDee Lamb, and I have somebody else just for depth. So I can get rid of one, and I was able to send him DeAndre Hopkins and Vaughn. What's crazy? His first name is escaping me. Keyshawn Vaughn. Thank you. I am a Bucs fan. I do know these guys players. Keyshawn Vaughn and DeAndre Hopkins, and I got back Jonathan Taylor, and I'm still a David Montgomery guy. My expectations have been way lowered. I'm not naive or unreasonable when it comes to these guys, but I also like to give every rookie more than a year. I'm not gonna note these guys as elite. Yes, if they just had a ball year, and I'm not gonna dump them on the side of the road because they had a mediocre year. I'm gonna give this guy another year before I throw him to the side. And I still think he's capable of doing something, but he's just gonna be my backup. Because I got Clyde now, and now I have Jonathan Taylor, and I have DeAndre Swift. Those are my. I love to have the reset on the right backs. What scares me most with running backs is getting close to contract years because we're not seeing these guys get what they want to get paid. Then they have to be moved. Then you have that question about where they're going to go, what's their fit, what's their role, how many snaps are they going to get. That scares the crap out of me. And then obviously, with running backs, the longer they play, they're more prone to injury, likely, not always. So I like to, stay young and healthy if I can at the running back position. So now that I have 3 presumably top rookies, I mean, I love Dobbins, don't get me wrong, but I think Clyde, Taylor, and Swift, in my opinion, are the top 3 rookie running backs of this class. And I have them to roll out with their when their rookie season for this league as is, and I'm pretty confident about it. So I'm reset on running backs. Don't have to worry about contract season for a while. They're all studs. They're all well-rounded players in good situations. I got what I needed, and I didn't think it was going to happen because everyone's like, I gotta have my rookies. I need my rookie running backs. No one trades them. It's hard to trade them. I need a rookie at this point. Rookie fever still lasts through the regular season.
Trav, what do you think of this move?
Yeah, I think the thing that you mentioned actually, because sorry, spoiler alert, you dropped the trade in the DM group beforehand, but the thing that you mentioned in the DM, Nate, was that next year Jonathan Taylor is not going to be this cheap. Well, and not cheap because you did pay a premium for him, but you won't be able to get him for that price next year.
I said
right?
as affordable, yeah.
Totally. Exactly. And I think like we at the True North Pod have been detractors of David Montgomery 100%. Just for various reasons, whatever. But I think the thing with that is if they can unlock some pass catching in Chicago after Tariq Cohen maybe leaves after this season, I think you could have gotten a steal in that trade because you could have 2 top 15 running backs, if not 2 top 12 running backs, if David Montgomery can get that passing unlocked, which is a huge question mark, of course, but we know there is running back targets to be had in that offense. So it's intriguing to see what happens going forward with Tariq Cohen. Now, I like DeAndre Hopkins. You mentioned that you had him faded a little bit. I actually still have him as a top 5 wide receiver. I think he's probably 4th or 5th without seeing it in front of me. But I do have a little bit of concerns for the fact that maybe the targets are a little spread out in Arizona this year because they do run so many 4 wideout sets. So I don't mind the trade at all, man. I think, and who was it that you gave up with DeAndre Hopkins? Keyshawn Vaughn? Yeah, not bad. I mean, David Montgomery is an upgrade
either way I
from
look at it,
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Exactly.
And then Hopkins and Taylor could be just a wash. So I think he came out maybe a little bit on top, especially if that pass catching comes in Chicago.
I think I admitted that I probably lost a little bit of point value this year, but yeah, you reminded me that I think I'm going to get back the value in Taylor's return later in the season.
Totally.
If Vaughn pulls a Kamara on our asses, a lot of us are going to be like regretting, you know, when you look at something like after it happened, you're like, how did I not?
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys right now where he's probably for me the most polarizing rookie running back where you see him kind of all over the place. We talked about where he's going ADP with Rojo and now the Rojo hype is starting to rebuild. So Vaughn's value will probably push even more. Having said all that, like Trav said, I mean, JT, I mean, I love me some JT anytime you can get him, like you said, and nobody's really moving him. If they are, it's probably to get something huge, you know, like something significant on the other side. But Montgomery, like you guys are talking about, everybody's saying, you know, the narrative is volume. But if you look at that offense and you look at a guy like Montgomery, he reminds me a lot of a guy like Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, his first season, he was nothing special. He wasn't, you know, people were not in love with him, but he was a high enough draft pick. Sure. I think he was the 2nd running back, if I remember correctly. But I just remember him smashing in year 2. And I remember in that offseason, collect him all the Melgo, as our boy Sal actually.
And every year since.
Going to Roto. Yeah, and every year since, right? To that Melgo has kind of, it's kind of nice with running backs because you expect them to come out, you know, firing. But if they do stumble a bit, it gives you a nice value, right? And that's what Montgomery's offering right now, between him stumbling and that offense stumbling. So you hope that offense can only go up, and Montgomery comes back as part of that. But like you said, it all depends on Hopkins. Look, if Hopkins goes over there in that offense and he's just a target hog, and he just puts in that top 5, production, and for years to come, because he's not that old. That offense is not old at all. He could also be legit as well. So again, a lot of pieces that can go either way, but I definitely like the 2 running backs and the potential there with that side. So it's a nice trade, man. I think it's a nice trade. Dan, you threw a couple FFPC trades. You've been pretty active right now in there, and I like this one trade with a guy, a receiver in his second year, and a running back, rookie running back coming in that's got a bit of hype out there in Buffalo.
Yeah, so I got let's see, I got Paris Campbell. I picked up Paris Campbell and a 2021 third for Zach Moss and a 2021 fifth. And I like this deal because I think Paris Campbell, he really didn't fire last year, and it was really injury related, but his skill set is undeniable. And what he brings into that Indianapolis offense, is something that's going to fit really nicely with Phillip Rivers' strengths, right? So you've got a player who fits really well within his offense, who has whose physical skills are undeniable. And I'm trading off Zach Moss, who I like a lot of things about Moss. I think he's undervalued right now. But with Moss, he's always going to have to contend with Singletary. He's always going to have to contend with Josh Allen. And so, I'm not sure how startable he's going to be. He's going to be one of those guys who, I think is definitely going to have some very good weeks. But I'm not sure how predictable those weeks are going to be. So picking up Paris Campbell, this was kind of the first half of a double trade that I did because I had another Indianapolis player that I had my eye on as well, along with Campbell, to kind of complete the daily double there. But what do you guys think about this trade?
Nate, what do you think, man? Paris Campbell for me is just one of those sleepers right now. Like, he's just going for nothing, and because of his injury last year and his non-existence, recency bias, he's a nice price.
I was gonna say I drafted him at 105 last year, but then I realized it was right. I think our buddy Pete, but I traded to get him regardless. So essentially, I valued him at 105 last year. And to your point, Dan, it's tough to really gauge a guy's value when he's playing with injuries. And man, I saw his hand; it was ballooned up. But I'm trying to figure out who he comps well to from when Rivers was at the Chargers, and I wanted to say Terrell Williams, but then I moved over to it's Trevor or Travis. Help me out here.
Oh, I know who you're thinking of.
Benjamin. Travis Benjamin?
Yeah, Travis Benjamin.
Thank you. Yeah. I think he really translates well to that, because Travis Benjamin wasn't the guy who got fed volume. He was just the guy who was like the bailout guy and he made big plays. I think Paris Campbell's going to be that guy and the guy who's going to get volume. I think he's very capable of being the underneath guy. He's very capable of being these I almost call him the switchblade, the Swiss Army knife type of guy. Where he's going to get his reverses like a Curtis Samuel type play and everything.
Blades at work, it's okay.
You carry it now and then. But I believe in the talent. Period. So and like I just mentioned with David Montgomery, I'm not gonna throw a guy to the side after one season, especially when it's an injury-plagued season. I really like Paris Campbell. I like everything that he brings to the table. I think he's very capable. And not to knock against the quarterback who was in Indianapolis last year. I don't know why I'm blanking on names. It's so hard, but
Jacoby Brissett.
Brissett. I still think Rivers is maybe between the years, if not at the arm. I mean, his throwing motion is insanely weird, but it's worked forever. Phillip Rivers is an accomplished quarterback, and I think that we're going to see this Paris Campbell pay off with Phillip Rivers here. And I'm trying not to speak too much of my bias, but I believe in Paris Campbell. Give him some time.
Yeah, his best comparable on Player Profiler, Nate, is Santana Moss, which is interesting.
Not bad, guys.
Cool, I like that.
Yeah,
Santana was
Yeah.
damn good in his day. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trav, anything to add on this trade? I mean, it's kind of those smaller guys, but these are the trades where you can pick up value, right? Because these guys
Yeah,
grow.
yeah, and I see it a little bit differently actually, and now I do like the fact that you brought a fifth up to the third in order to get that deal done. For me, maybe it's just I don't know enough about him, but Paris Campbell is an enigma. I don't really know what he's going to be in that offense. They brought in Michael Pittman. I think T.Y. Hilton's being slept on for this season, and then we're going to talk about another target in the Colts offense that Dan was going after as well. But we were pretty high on Zach Moss. Like I really like his 3-down skill set. He had a lot of receptions in college, lots of production. He breaks a lot of tackles. So I think, obviously it's tricky with Devin Singletary and the ultimate touchdown vulture in Josh Allen. Sorry. I think it's going to be tough sledding a little bit there, but I think for me, because I don't really trust in Paris Campbell that much, I think I'm going to lean towards the running back and just making sure that I'm stocked at that piece of my roster. Because if Devin Singletary goes down, which he did go down for a little bit last season, I think, it'd be wheels up for Zach Moss in that offense. And I think he could get the 3-down work, even though there's not a ton of pass catching there. Whatever there is, I think Devin Singletary got 44 targets last year. I think if Devin Singletary were to get hurt, obviously you don't want to bank or wish for a guy to get hurt whatsoever. But again, with the running back position, it just happens. And Devin Singletary is a little bit of a smaller guy. So I think for me, I would probably be skewing to the running back. Now, if I was moving a third round up to a second rounder, or a second rounder up to a first, I might be a little bit more inclined. But if you believe in Paris Campbell that much, I totally see what you're saying about Phillip Rivers because he's back with Frank Reich. It's not out of the realm of possibilities as a trade that I would potentially make if I needed that. So I think it's a good trade. You did mention, Dan, that you were stocked at running back, I believe. So totally reasonable trade to make, even though I might personally skew towards the running back.
Dan,
I'm stocked at running back in that league, and also I have a lot of Zach Moss and a lot of Keyshawn Vaughn across all my teams. So it's one of those things where I was just kind of looking to diversify my investments a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Trav, I totally agree with you. I think Zach Moss, there's definitely a path for him. I think his most likely path is probably going to be a little bit tough to see the big weeks coming. But, as you said, if Singletary gets hurt or anything like that, and, what I do like is that his skill set favors the high value touches, being good around the goal line, being a good receiver, whereas Singletary's more of a between the 20s guy. And, so that I think, I think there's a big disconnect between Singletary's value and Zach Moss's value. I think they should be much closer than what they are.
Totally.
So I think those are important points, and you got to bring those up when you're talking about Zach Moss.
Mm-hmm. Another piece, just to finish it off, there is that obviously you're not translating it directly over to Zach Moss, but last year Frank Gore got 150 plus carries, I think.
Right.
So I could completely see Zach Moss, even with Singletary, getting around 10 carries a game or so, with the odd touchdown upside as well. So I think, I think he can make something happen on those carries. But you just have to temper the expectations, right? You're not acquiring him thinking he's going to be a top end running back 2 or anything. You're probably going to think he could be a top end running back 3 maybe. And if he gives you some running back 2 weeks, you're happy. So it really depends on the expectations.
No, he's a depth piece, right? But one thing I will say, Dan, I do like how you're attacking the Indy offense, because with the season we have right now with COVID, the uncertainty, you're looking for as much consistency as you want, and you're looking at a team on the defensive line and the offensive line that is coming back very consistent and very successful. So it is definitely an offense. And then you look at the factors that might be variables in Phillips. Because of his experience, he kind of maybe balances that out. He kind of eliminates that risk factor, I guess you could say, with regards to him being the new quarterback in this offense. He has that experience or that history with Reich. That kind of, to me, narrows the gap between him coming into the new offense and so on. So I do like the attacking the Indy offense just in general as an offense that maybe you're targeting on. But speaking of the Indy offense, just another quick one that you recently did, Dan, in the FFPC in a 750 dynasty.
Yeah, so this is the same team. I also picked up Jack Doyle. I traded away Tony Pollard. I know Pollard's probably a little bit more, in a little bit higher in value, but we're deep enough down, in the range of value. I mean, Pollard is basically going for a 3rd round pick. Doyle's probably going for a 4th or a 5th round rookie pick, something like that, in a tight end premium. So I probably lost a little bit of value here, but I knew that the guy I was trading with valued Pollard, and I knew that I could get Doyle off him if I made the Pollard offer. And what that gave me was it gave me the combo of Jack Doyle plus Paris Campbell, which, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at the middle of the field, the short passing zone, where Phillip Rivers does a lot of his damage. And try to, get a couple guys in that range. I suppose to complete the set, I could probably get Nyheim Hines, but, I'm pretty comfortable with having Campbell and Doyle. So, but I think there's going to be a ton of, there's in any kind of a PPR, and especially in a tight end premium, where it's the number of passes that really add up for the tight ends rather than the touchdowns or the yardage. That's I think going to be Doyle's wheelhouse. I'm not really that concerned about. I'm blanking on his name. The guy from Chicago that was originally from Philly.
Trey Burton.
Yeah. I'm sure he's gonna. I'm sure he's going to have a small piece of the offense or whatever, but Doyle is that guy who has proven he can work with any quarterback. And so I think he's going to quickly establish that rapport with Rivers. So I like owning both those pieces, Doyle and Campbell, off the same offense.
Those Ali Cox shares are just, shaking the wind there. Nate, anything to add on these two guys? Again, I like how you're talking about Rivers' range, right? The short to intermediate type of range, and Doyle and Campbell fit in there. Anything to add with this little trade, Nate?
Little trade. I have nothing yet. Aside from the fact that
trade is beneath Nate's notice, he won't even acknowledge.
He's on his high
notice
horse.
up.
Got his
Exactly.
pinky up too.
Just like the last trade, I think these are both, low risk, decent reward type of returns, right? I mean, I think people, if you have a Pollard share, a lot of people are going to read into Zeke's being Zeke again and his low-key faded thing, and that's going to intrigue a lot of people to process the scenarios that may or may not happen. So I'm going to buy them as if they could. To where Pollard can be like, okay, Zeke's gonna get suspended and Pollard's your guy, whatever. Okay, good, capitalize on it. That's great. This is a tight end premium league. If you get anything that emulates what Phillip Rivers can do with Hunter Henry, then you've got yourself a great value in Doyle. But looking back at these two trades, when we started talking about all these guys in the offense, it does concern me that there's so many now options to go around over there. Great for Rivers. But it's just in the back of your mind. I mean, it's going to be difficult to get every one of these guys the ball to the point where you feel like you're comfortable with starting any one of these guys each week. I think Ty is the only guy I feel comfortable starting at the gate. Period. I have no reason not to believe any of these guys are going to come out and be like, okay, yeah, Pittman just had a 10 catch game or a 13 target, whatever. I wouldn't want to line that one. And I kind of feel the same with Doyle. I think he's established there. I think I have enough confidence to start him. But I mean, this isn't a roster shaking move. You're not doing this to reset the structure of your team. You're doing this to add a player in a position that has value, and that you probably need. So again, this is more of a when you're at this level of peasant style trading of players, you get to the guys that you need to fill out your roster and not make these universe blowing up type of trades. So either I can see both sides. I mean, no one's losing in this trade.
That's for sure.
Nate, remind people where to find you. Anything else you want to share? I know you write a couple pieces on the Bucks. If you want to share that info and anything else before we close this bad boy out, we're going on
Sure.
90 minutes, son.
We could probably go another 90, I'm sure.
Easily.
But especially if you want to ask me to talk about the Bucks, which I'll try to condense that time. But yeah, so you can find me on Twitter when my Wi-Fi works. We can talk trades whenever you want. But my handle is at Nathan_Pilmer. I don't contribute to Full Press Buccaneers anymore, but there's a potential for me to do a podcast with them soon for Strictly Bucks. So I'm kind of weighing that. I might return to writing articles with them again. But as of for now, I am just writing the coattails of you guys. When I come to talk about any type of fantasy advice, I just go into our goat chat. I don't need to listen to too many podcasts because we're kind of blessed with so many guys that we play with. And like I said, I mean, I'm here to record with you guys. I get the direct line, so that's right. So it's the goat league for a reason. But regardless, I'm always around to talk trades, any type of football. I just like to talk, period. And in times like this, it's good to have positive connections. And I try to be that for everybody. So if it doesn't need to be football, it doesn't matter to me. But I prefer it to be. Let's talk some trades.
From Cali to BC, Trav, share any goodness you want Fantasyland to remember this with, and anything you want to share before we pass it to the overhyped sleeper.
No, I just, thank you guys for having me. I love interacting with you guys. Dan, you're one of my faves on Twitter, man. And this podcast is just one of my faves in general. So yeah, there it is. I love the goat sound effect. I love the air horn too. I love the air horn too. There it is. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, I mean, my name's Travis. You can find me at TCL14, as you can see right there. Our website is truenorthffb.com. So make sure you check that out. We've got articles, rankings. We got 4 podcasts in the podcast network that we're super stoked about. And we've just launched a YouTube channel, the TNFF Network, and we're slowly but surely getting some video content up there. And we hope that we kind of aim to inform people and give them a bunch of information and allow them to make their own decisions for their rosters. We obviously are totally game to give advice and whatnot, but we like to lay it out for them to play it out, is kind of how we say it. So yeah, that's kind of what we aim to do. And really, really stoked about the team we've built. We've got that listed on the site too. So check out all the fellas. But yeah, again, just super intrigued to see what happens with this season. Really hope we get some meaningful football. But much like this podcast, I think even if there isn't necessarily meaningful football, I think we'll always have something to talk about. So thanks again for having me on, JD. Thanks a lot, Dan. And it was a pleasure to be on with you there, Nate. And until next time, fellas.
Trav, we want football, man. We need some real talk, right, Dan?
I know, dude. I need it too.
It's not a want anymore; it's a need.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I found myself watching baseball.
I was editing the last show, and I heard you say that again. And I was like, did he just say he's watching baseball? Man,
Hockey started last night, though. Dan, hockey started last night.
Oh yes, definitely. I gotta get into that too. So this is good news. But I tell you, what a great crew on tonight. Nate has become one of my favorite league mates, I think, of all time. Just the energy he brings to any league that he's in, and the amount of fun he has with it and everything else, and is super knowledgeable too. I mean, I am just. I'm grateful to be sitting in the seat that he was once sitting in. So appreciate the fact that Nate gave up the seat, and I am the one who is honored.
I'm never getting it back. I couldn't even feel your shoes. No. Thank you.
Thank you. You're too kind. But I just love interacting with Nate. Having him as part of the GOAT chat is just one of my favorite things in the GOAT chat, without a doubt. And Travis, you guys at the True North, I mean, you guys are coming on. I love what you're doing. I love the team you're putting together. And the insight that you guys have. You have a sharp group there. And if you haven't explored the True North yet, you need to get up there and you need to give them a look and see what they got going on, because they're coming on, people.
I appreciate that, buddy. And you know that we already tabbed you an honorary Canadian. So yeah, you are one of us, brother. You are one of us.
Yeah. No, what Dan is saying is legit, man. Go check out the True North, and at TSeal14 is Travis's handle. Go make sure you follow him, and by following him, you'll catch on to a bunch of other Canucks that are putting up some pretty good content, man. I gotta say, like it's definitely content that you might not find somewhere else. A little different angle. And if you're looking to trade, or you're looking to get advice on trades or player values, like Dan said, our boy Nathan Pilmer at Nathan_Pilmer is definitely one of those gems, right? That not everybody knows about, and maybe Fantasyland should know more about. So make sure you follow both of these guys, follow what they're doing. Dan, I get the pleasure on the weekly to chat with you, and I appreciate everything you bring. Go check it out. Go check us out on Instagram. You know, Goat District FF. You wanna do something a little different if you're into the IG, and give us those 5-star reviews. Keep them coming. You guys are blessing us with those things. And any feedback, like, we say 5-star reviews, and it helps us for sure. But the feedback is really what we're after, especially now that, like Trav and I mentioned, we're a little newer to the YouTube and video world, the visual world. So give us advice. Like, should I, shave my 5 o'clock shadow? Should I go for the full Nate beard? Like, just give me advice, man. Hat, no hat. Whatever.
I am on the cusp of blowing up as an Instagram model, just so you know.
I love it. I cannot wait for those jort shots. But make sure you tag Dan and I at Overhyped Sleeper at Goat District on those trades. Hashtag always be trading. Be happy. Wear a mask, and we'll check you all later.
I'm really rich. Goat District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash off.
I haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do yet on the visual with the intro and outro song. So we'll just cut that a little short. But that was fun, guys. Appreciate that.
That was awesome, gentlemen.
You have a hell of a time editing.
Well, the audio.
I went from my audio was what?
The audio is easier to edit. The video I'm new to, so I'm just gonna drop it as is, my friend.
Yep.
I went from 3 different devices tonight. I had no idea. I was like trying to set up my Skype last minute because it was so ancient. Like they forgot I even had an account. So no, this is cool, man. This is way better.
Yeah, it's way better, right?
It's a pretty good little site, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
especially for the cost. Like the cost is peanuts. Like when you use it as much as you guys are gonna use it, the cost
for sure.
is nothing.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I was gonna say it's not necessarily peanuts in Canadian.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
More
yeah,
like cashews. They're more like
cashews,
Yeah, and then the peanuts are upgraded. The cashews or macadamias there.
yeah.
This is awesome, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, man, what a blast. That